In her eyes, all her subjects were equal. She was simply there in a special way. She was the center of all life and Fantastica. And every creature, whether good or bad, beautiful or ugly, merry or solemn, foolish or wise, all over, all owed their existency to her existency. Without her, nothing could have lived any more than a human body can live if it has lost its heart. All knew this to be so, for no one fully understood her secret. Thus, she was respected by all the creatures of the empire, and her health was of equal concern to them all. For her death would have meant the end of them all, the end of the boundless Fantastican realm. Bastian's thoughts wandered. Suddenly he remembered the long corridor in the hospital, where his mother had been operated on. He and his father had sat waiting for hours outside the operating room. Doctors and nurses hurried this way and that. When his father asked about his wife, the answer was always evasive. No one really seemed to know how she was doing. Finally, a bald-headed man in a white smock had come out to them. He looked tired inside. Much as he regretted it, he said, his efforts had been in vain. He had pressed their hands and mumbled something about heartfelt sympathy. After that, everything had changed between Bastian and his father. Not outwardly, Bastian had everything he could have wished for. He had a free-speed bicycle, an electric train, plenty of vitamin pills, 53 books, a golden hamster, an aquarium with tropical fish in it, a small camera, 6 pocket knives, and so forth and so on. But none of all this really meant anything to him. Bastian remembered that his father had often played with him in the past. He had even told him stories. No longer. He couldn't talk to his father anymore. There was an invisible wall around his father, and no one could get through to him. He never found fault, and he never praised. Even when Bastian was put back in school, his father hadn't said anything. He had only looked at him in his sad, absent way, and Bastian felt that as far as his father was concerned, he wasn't there at all. That was how his father usually made him feel. When he sat in front of the television screen in the evening, Bastian saw that his father wasn't even looking at it, that his thoughts were far away. Or when they both sat there with books, Bastian saw that his father wasn't reading at all. He had been looking at the same page for hours and had forgotten to turn it. Bastian knew his father was sad. He himself had cried for many nights. Sometimes he had been so shaken by sobs that he had to vomit. But little by little it had passed, and after all he was still there. Why didn't his father ever speak to him, not about his mother, not about important things, but just for the feel of talking together? If only we knew, said a tall, thin fire sprite with a beard of red flames. If only we knew what her illness is. There's no fever, no swelling, no rash, no inflammation. She just seems to be fading away, no one knows why. As he spoke, little clouds of smoke came out of his mouth and formed figures. This time they were question marks. A bedraggled old raven who looked like a potato with feathers stuck onto it every which way answered in a croaking voice. He was a head cloud. He has a head cold and sore throat. Specialist. She doesn't cut. She hasn't got a cold. Medically speaking, it's not disease at all. He adjusted the big spectacle on his beak and cast a challenging look around. One thing seems obvious, buzzed a scarab, a beetle, sometimes known as pill roller. There is some mysterious connection between her illness and the terrible happenings these messengers from all Fantastic have been reporting. Oh yes, scoffed an ink goblin, you see mysterious connections everywhere. My dear colleague, blitted a hollow-cheeked ghost in a long white groan. Let's not get personal. Such remarks are quite irrelevant, and please lower your voices. Conversations of this kind were going on in every part of the throne room. It may seem strange to the creatures of so many different kinds were able to communicate with one another, but all the inhabitants of Fantastica, even the animals, knew at least 2 languages, their own, which they spoke only with members of their own species, and which no outsider understood, and the universal language known as High Fantastican. All Fantastican used it, though some in a rather particular way. Suddenly all fell silent, for the great double door had opened. In stepped Charon, the far-famed master of the healer's art. He was what in older times had been called a centaur. He had the body of a man from the waist up and that of a horse from the waist down. And Charon was furthermore a black centaur. He hailed from a remote region far to the south. Of his human health was the color of ebony. Only his curly hair and beard were white, while the horse-like half of him was striped like a zebra. He was wearing a strange hat painted of reeds. A large golden amulet hung from a chain around his neck, and on his amulet one could make out 2 snakes, one little and one dark, which were biting each other's tail, and so forming an oval. Everyone Fantastica knew what the medallion meant. It was the badge of one acting on orders from the childlike empress, acting in her name as though she herself were present. It was said to give the bearer mysterious powers, for no one knew exactly what these powers were. Everyone knew its name, Auron. But many who feared to pronounce the name called it the gem or the glory. In other words, the book bore the mark of the childlike empress. A whispering passed through the throne room, and some of the doctors were heard to cry out. The gem had not been entrusted to anyone for a long, long time. Charon stamped his hoofs 2 or 3 times. When the disorder subsided, he said in a deep voice, "Friends, don't be too upset. I shall only be wearing Auron for a short time. I am merely a go-between. Soon I shall pass the gem on to one worthier." A breathless silence filled the room. I won't try to misinterpret our defense with high-sounding words. The childlike empress's illness has baffled us all. The one thing we know is that the destruction of Fantastica began at the same time as his illness. We can't even be sure that medical science can save her, but it is possible, and I hope none of you will be offended at what I am going to say. It is possible that we who are gathered here do not possess all knowledge, all wisdom. Indeed, it is my last and only hope that somewhere in this unbound realm there is a being wiser than we are, who can give us help and advice. Of course, this is no more than a possibility, but one thing is certain: the search for a savior calls for a pathfinder, someone who is capable of finding paths in the pathless wilderness, and who will shrink from no danger or hardship. In other words, a hero. And the childlike empress has given me the name of this hero, to whom she entrusts her salvation and ours. His name is Atreyu, and he lives in the grassy ocean beyond the silver mountains. I shall transmit Aaron to him and send him to the great quest. Now you know all there is to know." With that, the old centaur thumped out of the room. Those who remained behind exchanged looks of bewilderment. "What was this hero's name?" one of them asked. "Atreyu, or something of the kind," said another. "Never heard of him," said the third, and all 499 doctors shook their heads in dismay. The clock in the belfry struck them. Bastian was amazed at how quickly the time had passed. In class, every hour seemed to drag on for an eternity. They would be having history with Mr. Drone, a gangling, ordinarily ill-tempered man who delighted in holding Bastian up to ridicule because he couldn't remember the dates when certain battles had been fought or when someone or other had reigned. The grassy ocean behind the Silver Mountains was many days' journey from the Ivory Tower, was actually a prairie. Oh my god. How the fuck do I pronounce it?
What the fuck? Dad! Language, everyone!
It was actually a prairie, as long as and wide, and flat as an ocean. Its whole expanse was covered with tall, juicy grass, and when the wind blew, great waves passed over it with a sound like troubled water. The people who lived there were known as grass people or greenskins. They had blue-black hair, which the men as well as the women wore long and often in pigtails, and their skin was olive green. They led a hard, frugal life, and their children, girls as well as boys, were brought up to the brave, proud and generous. They learned to bear heat, cold, and great hardship, and were tested for courage at an early age. This was necessary because the greenskins were a nation of hunters. They obtained everything they needed either from the hard, fibrous prairie grass or from the purple buffaloes, great herds of which roamed the grassy ocean. These purple buffaloes were about twice the size of common bulls or cows. They had long, purplish red hair with a silky sheen and enormous horns with tips as hard and sharp as daggers. They were peaceful as a rule, but when they scented danger or thought they were being attacked, they could be as terrible as a natural cataclysm. Only Greek skin would have dared to hunt these beasts, and moreover they used no other weapons than bows and arrows. The greenskins were believers in chivalrous combat, and often it was not the hunted but the hunter who lost his life. The greenskins loved and honored the purple buffaloes, and held that only those willing to be killed by them had the right to kill them. News of the childlike empress's illness and the danger threatening all Fantastica had not yet reached the grassy ocean. It was a long, long time since any traveler had visited the 10 colonies of the greenskins. The grass was juicier than ever, the days were bright, and the nights full of stars. All seemed to be well, but one day a white-haired black centaur appeared. His hide was dripping with sweat. He seemed totally exhausted, and his bared face was haggard. On his head he wore a strange hat painted of reeds, and around his neck a chain with a large golden amulet hanging from it. It was Charon. He stood in the open space at the center of a successive rings of tents. It was there that the elders had their councils, and that the people danced and sang along songs on feast days. He waited for the greenskins to assemble. but it was only very old men and women and small children, wide-eyed with curiosity, who crowded around him. He stamped his hoofs impatiently. "Where are the hunters and huntresses?" he panted, removing his hat and wiping his forehead. A white-haired woman with a baby in her arms replied, "They are still hunting. They won't be back for 3 or 4 days." "Is the Atreyu with them?" the centaur asked. "Yes, stranger, but how can it be that you know him?" "I don't know him. Go and get him." "Stranger," said an old man on crutches, "he will come unwillingly, because this is his hunt. It starts at sunset. Do you know what that means?" Karen shook his head and stamped his hoofs. "I don't know, and it doesn't matter. He has something more important to do now. You know this sign I am wearing? Go and get him." "We see it again," said the little girl. "And we know you have come from the childlike empress. But who are you?" "My name is Chiron," the centaur growled. "Chiron the physician, if that means anything to you." A bent old woman pushed forward and cried out, "Yes, it is true. I recognize him. I saw him once when I was young. He's the greatest and most famous doctor in all Fantastica." The centaur nodded. "Thank you, my good woman," he said. "And now perhaps one of you will at last be kind enough to bring this Atreyu here. It's urgent. The life of the childlike empress is at stake." "I'll go," cried a little girl over 5 or 6. She ran away, and a few seconds later, she could be seen between the tents galloping away on a saddleless horse. "At last," Chiron grumbled. Then he fell into a dead faint. When he revived, he didn't know where he was, for all was dark around him. It came to him only, little by little, that he was in a large tent lying on a bed of soft furs. It seemed to be night, for though a cleft in the door curtain he saw flickering firelight. "Holy horses, hose," he muttered and tried to sit up. "How long have I been lying here?" A head looked in through the door, opening and pulled back again. Someone said, "Yes, he seems to be awake." Then the curtain was drawn aside and a boy of about 10 stepped in. His long trousers and shoes were of soft buffalo leather. His body was bare from the waist up by a long purple-red cloak, evidently woven from buffalo hair, hung from his shoulders. His long blue-black hair was gathered together and held back by leather thongs. A few simple white designs were painted on the olive-green skin of his cheeks and forehead. His dark eyes flashed angrily at the intruder. Otherwise, his features betrayed no emotion of any kind. "What do you want from me, stranger?" he asked. "Why do you come to my tent, and why have you robbed me of my hunt? If I had killed the big buffalo today, my arrow was already fitted to my bowstring. I'd have been a hunter tomorrow. Now I have to wait a whole year. Why?" The old centaur stared at him in consternation. "I am to take it," he asked, "that you are Atreyu?" "That's right, stranger." "Isn't there someone else of the same name, a grown man, an experienced hunter?" "No, I and no one else am Atreyu." Sinking back on his bed of furs, old Chiron gasped. "A child? A little boy? Really? The decisions of the childlike empress are hard to fathom." Atreyu waited in impassive silence. "Forgive me, Atreyu," said Chiron, controlling his agitation with the greatest difficulty. "I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but the surprise has been just too great. Frankly, I am horrified. I don't know what to think. I can't help wondering. Did the childlike empress really know what she was doing when she chose a youngster like you? It's sheer madness. And if she did it intentionally, then... With a violent shake of his head, he blurted out, No. If I had known whom she was sending me to, I'd have refused to entrust you with the mission. I have refused. What mission? Atreyu asked. It's monstrous, cried Charon indignantly. It's doubtful whether even the greatest, most experienced of heroes could carry out this mission. And she's sending you into the unfathomable to look for the unknown. No one can help you. No one can advise you. No one can foresee what will befall you. And yet you must decide at once, immediately, whether or not you accept this mission. There's not a moment to be lost. For 10 days and nights I have galloped, almost without rest to search you. Without rest to reach you. But now, I almost wish I hadn't gone here. I'm very old. I'm at the end of my strength. Give me a drink of water, please. Atreyu brought a pitcher of fresh spring water. The centaur drank deeply, then he wiped his beard and said, somewhat more calmly, Thank you. That was good. I feel better already. Listen to me, Atreyu. You don't have to accept this mission. The childlike empress leaves it entirely up to you. She never gives orders. I tell her how it is and she will find someone else. She can't have known you were a little boy. She must have got you mixed up with someone else. That's the only possible explanation. What is this mission? Atreyu asked. To find a cure for the childlike empress, the centaur answered, and save Fantastica. Is she sick? Atreyu asked in amazement. Charon told him how it was with the childlike empress, and what the messengers had reported from all parts of Fantastica. Atreyu asked many questions, and the centaur answered them to the best of his ability. They talked far into the night. And the more Atreyu learned of the meanness facing Fantastica, the more his face, which at first had been so impassive, expressed unveiled horror. To think, he murmured, finally, with pale lips, that I knew nothing about it. Charon cast a grave, anxious look at the boy from under his bushy white eyebrows. Now you know the lie of the land, he said. And now perhaps you understand why I was so obsessed. Why I was so upset. When I first laid eyes on you, still it was you the childlike empress named. Go and find Atreyu, she said to me. Put all my trust in him, she said. Ask him if he is willing to attempt the great quest for me and for Fantastica. I don't know why she chose you. Maybe only a little boy like you can do whatever has to be done. I don't know, and I can't advise you. Atreyu sat there with bowed head and made no reply. He realized that this was a far greater task than his hunt. It was doubtful whether the greatest hunter and pathfinder could succeed. How then could he hope? Well, the centaur asked, will you? Atreyu raised his head and looked at him. I will, he said firmly. Charon nodded gravely. Then he took the chain with the golden amulet from his neck and put it around Atreyu's. Orin gives you great power, he said solemnly. But you must not make use of it, for the childlike empress herself never makes use of the power. Orin will protect you and guide you. Whatever comes your way, you must never interfere, because from this moment on, your own opinion ceases to count. For that same reason, you must go unarmed. You must let what happens happen, Everything must be equal in your eyes, God and evil. Beautiful and ugly, foolish and wise, just as it is in the eyes of the childlike empress. You may only search and inquire, never judge. Always remember that, Atreyu. Auron, Atreyu repeated with awe. I will be worthy of the glory. When should I start? Immediately, said Charon. No one knows how long your great quest will be. Every hour may count even now. Say goodbye to your parents and your brothers and sisters. I have none, said Atreyu. My parents were both killed by a buffalo soon after I was born. Who brought you up? All the men and women together. That's why they called me Atreyu, which in other language means son of all. And with this last line, I am stopping to read. It's just a little part of this book, but I really love the story of it, and it most definitely is one of my favorite child stories. Also, the movie is quite great if you want to watch it on any time. I really like it, so yeah, you should give it a try. Now let us talk about some questions I really get asked a lot. I didn't plan on anything with a script or anything, so please don't expect me to answer this in detail. But one question I always get is I don't know, how do you get into a relationship? What do you have to do? Do you have to be some kind of prepared, or do you have to reach a level of spirituality or whatever you call this? I believe it's not that you have to be prepared, but you have to know your inner world. You have to be aligned with what is real to you. You have to be clear on what you want in your life, and you have to treat yourself like somebody you love. And what I experienced myself is that if you love someone more than yourself, the relationship probably won't work out well. Because if you put somebody else above yourself, above your inner child, it's the same as if you're saying, yeah, this person is better than you are. I love this person more than I love you. And that is not how it should be. You should love your inner child way more than you love anyone else. And if you don't, you should most definitely work on that. Because it's your responsibility to take care of that inner child and to make life better for it. To create a room for your inner child where it can be how it wants to be. If it wants to be goofy, if it wants to play, sing, dance around, anything like that. And that's so important. But to make a relationship work, I believe it's also some kind of talking about feelings. Communication is really a key point. Talk it out. If you have something on your mind that you want to change in a relationship, just talk with them. But I believe it's really important at first to make clear what you both want. How do you want this relationship to be? What is your imagination of love? What is your definition of love? Define that for yourself. Define how you want your partner to be. I believe it's all crap. These people saying you have to write down in detail what you want them to be, anything like how they should look. It just doesn't matter. The soul matters, in my opinion. But that's just how I see it. you don't have to define how they look. It's more about how they feel. And after experiencing how it feels like to meet somebody like your twin flame, a part of your soul, a person that mirrors you, a person that is aligned with your life. And I have not believed in true love or anything like that, but I think the twin flame experience comes very close to that, because you meet a person that is a part of yourself, actually. And you meet them and you feel their energy instantly. You meet them and you probably feel safe and you feel seen all at once, and these emotions can be very overwhelming at first. And separation can also feel very, very painful. And I don't know so much about this, but I just can talk about my experience. And I believe that love itself has to be unconditional. And if you don't accept somebody else or yourself, it all starts at yourself, to be honest. You have to accept yourself. You have to know about yourself. You have to love yourself before getting into a relationship. Because if you put somebody else's needs above your own, you're most likely to stay with them when they cross your boundaries. And when people cross your boundaries, you are crossing your own boundaries at the same time. Because you're telling yourself, oh, I deserve this. I deserve to be treated badly. Because honey, you don't. You don't deserve that, and you should tell yourself that you are amazing, that you are beautiful. You should look into the mirror and be happy about what you see. And that is all that matters. That is all that matters, that you are good to yourself and that you believe that there is something good in you, inside of your heart and in the world. I know news and everything are scary sometimes, and that we tend to horrify those news that we hear daily. I do too, of course. We cannot avoid everything of these, but I think it's important to also be aware of that, to acknowledge it, but to not judge it in any kind of way or criticize it. Just acknowledge it. You don't have to feel anything towards it. That is like one thing I learned by doing Zen meditations. And the old woman who taught me kinda was like, yeah, sit there, acknowledge your emotions, acknowledge the sounds around you. You can acknowledge everything. Let it be there. You don't have to identify with it. You are not your emotions. You are not your past. You are the consciousness behind everything. And if you just sit there, focus on your breathing, and let the world pass. I don't know if I had reached a level of peace and if I had been in that moment, but I believe I was close to it, so maybe that also needs some kind of practice. But thing is, you can do that with everything. Just acknowledge things. Step away from it. Don't identify with it. It's always the same thing. If something gets overwhelming, you have to take a step back and watch from it. Like, watch into it. Like an outstander. See it like an outstander seeing your life. And it would seem differently to you. Maybe it's not so much then. Maybe you can structure it into small parts. Yeah, that was pretty much what I wanted to say.
So thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you're having the most beautiful Christmas day ever.
Even if you're not celebrating it, it doesn't matter. Be good to yourselves, and I love you all so much. Have a good day. Bye bye.
여기는 beach? 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 beach?